1,400 hours according to my watch. Good afternoon, Minister, HOD, the entire food security team of the Western Cape. Can we take a moment of prayer, meditation, or silence before we start? Thank you very much. First and foremost, happy birthday, Minister. May you have a blessed day. I hope members won't keep you long today. They will release you as quick as possible so that you can go and spend your birthday with your loved ones. Minister, HOD, and officials of the department, I would really like to take this opportunity really first to really thank you for your assistance whenever we call for help. Your reliability greatly supports the work that our committee members are doing. First, before I really proceed with this meeting, I would really love to give my colleagues an opportunity, members of the standing committee, to introduce themselves, and thereafter, obviously, Minister will have the opportunity to introduce his team. Honorable members, from where I sit, Honorable Vessel will be first.
Thank you, Chairperson. Del Vessels, member of the committee. Thanks.
Pleasure. Honorable Bryant will be next.
Sorry, Chairperson, I had a bit of an issue with my microphone there. Dave Bryant, member of the committee.
I note Honorable Constable.
Good afternoon, Chair. Good afternoon, MEC. Good afternoon, colleagues. My name is Noel Constable, and I'm a member of this committee. And happy birthday to you, Minister.
Honorable Brenkhuyse.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Am I audible?
Yes, you are audible, sir.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon to you, Chairperson, and good afternoon to all the colleagues. Good afternoon, Minister, Minister Meyer, and let me take the opportunity of congratulate also Minister Meyer on his birthday. Mrs. Khalil Barankes, also a member of the committee. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you. Honorable Nkondlo.
Good afternoon, Chair. Good afternoon, Minister. My name is Nomin Nkondlo. I'm a member of the committee, and I also send my greetings and also well wishes on your birthday, Minister. Thank you.
Honorable Mbombo.
Thank you. As per introduction by the chair, Minemandi Kuwe, Patiswa, Agriculture, and good afternoon to the department. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Nkondlo. Minister, before I hand over to you, I just want to let you know that this committee has decided to undertake a local industry studies to learn about the industry that you serve, because we believe that we are also an integral part of this work that you are doing. And on April the 22nd, the committee will be engaging with the industry to gain better understanding of the work that they do, their contributions to job, and the economy, also the challenges that they face, on a daily basis, and their inputs on how we as lawmakers, can be of assistance to them. Letters have been sent out to the industry stakeholders, And we really appreciate the HOD's office for assisting the committee procedural officer in ensuring that she gets the correct contact details to invite the industry stakeholders. But we have also, asked that the procedural officer to invite you to really give us an opening address at this meeting, because we believe it's crucial. It's a stakeholder, it's a study. We are also, learning out of this event. So our goal is really to ensure that we save our residents from further increased taxes while helping you and your department really finding ways to grow the economy and create jobs. At times, we might ask difficult questions, Minister, and putting difficult resolutions to you, Minister, but it is really in the interest of the residents of the Western Cape. We believe they deserve better. For us, growth and job creation are the solutions for this country. So, Minister, with those few remarks, I would hand over to you to introduce your team, and I will also, have the opportunity to just introduce the agenda to colleagues, but I think an opportunity for you to introduce your team, Minister. Thank you.
Firstly, thank you to the chair and the members of the committee, and thank you for your warm wishes towards my birthday. I'm here at Elsenburg, and I'm going to ask all the members in this meeting to introduce themselves, starting with my HOD, Dr. Mogale Sebopetsa.
Chair, good afternoon. Mogale Sebopetsa, Head of Department, and it's good to be here. And Happy New Year to all of you and the members, because I don't think I've met all of you in the year.
Good afternoon, Chair and members. My name is Lindy Govender. I'm the CFO at Agriculture.
Good afternoon, Chair and members. Dr. Ilse Trautman, the DDG for Agricultural Research and Regulatory Services. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chairperson and members. Jerry Aris, Agricultural Producer Support and Development.
Good afternoon, members. Asia Peterson, Director for Sustainable Resource Use and Management. Thank you.
Chairperson and members, good afternoon. My name is Paul Rockman, Chief Director, Operational Support Services.
Good afternoon, Chair and members. Sydney Babu, Office of the Head of Department.
Good afternoon, Chairperson and all the members. Petro van Jaarsveld, Administrative Secretary, Minister Meyer's office.
Good afternoon, Chairperson. Daniel Johnson, Media Liaison Officer in Minister Meyer's office.
Good afternoon, Chairperson and members. Marieke van Jaarsveld, Head of Ministry.
Back to you, Chair.
Oh, thank you very much, Minister. I see there are a few other names online. Can we have the people that have joined us online to just introduce themselves? Are there some of your officials online, Minister?
That is correct.
Good afternoon, Chair members. Keith du Plessis, Casidra.
Good afternoon, Freek van Zyl, CFO Casidra.
Thank you. The next one, I see GM, BM, CS, GS.
Good afternoon, Chair and members. Clint Starling from Agriculture Department, Director Supply Chain and Assets.
Good afternoon, Chair. Granville Stander, Chief Director, Agricultural Education and Training.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Debbie Zana. I'm in the Financial Management section at Agriculture. Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie. I see JP.
Good afternoon, Chair and members. Jackie Pandaram, Chief Director, Rural Development.
Thank you, Jackie. Is there anyone that I might have missed?
Good afternoon, Chair. Japie Kritzinger, Acting Director, Business Planning and Strategy.
Thank you, Japie. There is BM wanted to speak.
Yes, good afternoon, Chair. Is Bongiso Madodi, responsible for agricultural economic services within the department. Thank you.
Thank you, Bongisa. Is that all? Going once, going twice. I think that's all. Honorable Minister, we have with today is the consideration of vote 11. And once we have engaged with you and deliberated this vote 11, we'll proceed to the consideration and adoption of the draft committee report, which means that we will be saying whether we support the report or not. So just really house rule, honorable members. Please note that this budget vote deliberation is being live streamed on YouTube and also open to public. There could be members of the public that are that have joined us live, so they are also allowed to ask questions if needed. If you won't be speaking, I will really request honorable members and officials to switch off your video and mute your mic, because it could really end up disturbing the bandwidth. So also, you know, really a request is that maybe when members speak, to put their video on, so that you know, members of the public can know who is representing us, who is speaking for them. Further note to members is that the department's budget for 2025-2026 financial year is directly linked to department and entities' annual plan. So as such, they have got a direct link as well to its strategic plan of 2025-2030. It is not customary, honorable members, for the committee to work through the APP and the strategic plan page by page. However, if your questions, honorable members, relate to apologies. However, honorable members, if your question relate to the APP or the strategic plan, to just help Minister and his team to respond swiftly, we'll prefer that you refer to a page that your question is coming from. Further, really, honorable members, will ask really that members work through the Provincial Revenue and Expenditure 2025, pointing to the relevant pages in the Blue Book, page 529 to page 617. And thereafter, then, honorable members, we will then be proceeding to the consideration and adoption of the report. Minister, I'm going to hand over to you to give us opening remark, and then HOD, and thereafter, then obviously, if the chairperson of CASIDRA is here and want to make an opening remark, is also welcome. But obviously, we'll hand over to you to really direct the proceeding from your side. Thank you, Minister. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Chair and members of the committee. For the first time, we also have a new member of our staff that is present at the standing committee, and his name is Granville Stander. He is the new head of the Elsenburg Agricultural Training College, an outstanding manager coming from the Western Cape Education Department, and he already had his first graduate inputs last year in December, and we're very pleased that he's also joined this Department of Agriculture and is also joining this meeting for the first time. We're also very happy that both the CEO and the CFO of CASIDRA is also attending this particular meeting. I'd also very much like, before I move to my ministerial priorities, just to mention that during the years, I have seen that there were a number of questions that have come through the committee, and I have decided perhaps to deal with those things up front, and that deals namely about the issue of the blended financing scheme, a very hot topic in agriculture, and in terms of the relationship with CASIDRA, and how do we deal with this blended financing. This is important because of the current fiscal situation. Now, this is already happening, Chair. It happened since 2009 with the commodity approach. The commodities invest in its own with own resources for additional support for land reform, and the banking sector has also come to the party, and they are part of the delivery system in terms of the blending financing scheme for grant funding for supporting farmers. I've been personally being part of that particular program, and I'm very happy that our work through the Jobs Fund and the fruit sector is one of the most successful blended financing projects. We started with a funding of about 120 million rand, and in the end, 250 million rand was invested to support the land reform for farmers, also through the blending scheme. Now, this is the deciduous industry Hoordgrow established Hoordfin, which is a type of blended financing scheme with the fruit and the wine subsectors. And currently, for every 1 rand, we leverage 1.20 rand of the private sector funding. So this blended financing scheme works very well. Hoordfin, the Jobs Fund, FNB, Hoordgrow, as well as the Western Cape government is part of this particular initiative. Now, I know from previous standing committees and questions that I've received, both oral questions and written questions from this committee, there was questions about CASP funding. You will also see it later in the presentation that the CFO will be making in terms of the CASP funding. We continue to also engage with the National Department about the transferring of that money through the department, and we do this normally through the National Treasury and the 10x10 meetings that we normally set up. It is actually the National Department that must actually request and advocate for the SIFT with the National Treasury, and it seems they still want that particular control. Schedule 5 gives them greater control, but it is not responsive to the agriculture, given the seasonality is a major factor in agriculture. All of you would know that agriculture has a seasonality, and in terms of the Schedule 5, national government, it gives them more control, which means that while the production phase is already in some places, or the planting phases is already at another level, the money is only coming about 18 months later, and that brings a lot of problems in terms of the agricultural sector. We see it as a hindrance, and that's why we are actually continuously engaging with them. One of the questions that I have received also numerously is about the clarification, because you would notice that there were in the past 2 conditional grants, the Ilima, the Tsema grant, and the CASP grant. So people who have asked me in the past, what is this all about? There are basically no major differences as per the grant framework, except that the Ilima Letsema focus is about food gardens for food and nutrition security. You would notice, as I will come to my ministerial priority, the importance of food security and nutrition. And the recent review by the National Treasury on these grants also concluded that these 2 grants should be merged into 1 grant from 2026 to 2027 financial year. So in the next financial year, those grants will be merged into 1 grant, which I think is it's a good thing to do. Less administrative work in that particular regard. Now, in terms of the adjusted appropriation of 2024, I've been in touch with the HOD, the accounting officer, and the CFO. You would have noticed that in December last year, I have tabled in Parliament 300 million rand adjusted budget, and that relates to the disasters. And I have been informed by the accounting officer, unfortunately, the department only received the 300 million rand on the 26th of March, 2025, which means today is the 28th. We only received that money 2 days ago. And I'm now looking at one of our members here in the room, Ms. Asha Peterson from Sustainable Resource Use Management. And certainly this is something that we are taking very seriously, because we only have 3 working days to spend this money. Impossible. I want to bring it under the attention of the Standing Committee. So the HOD has requested me on my ideas about it. So I have given him full powers to request from the Provincial Treasury to ask for a rollover, because that's the only thing in the financial framework that we could do. We will follow the proper route of applying for a rollover of these unspent funds, approximately 270 million to our Provincial Treasury. The initial estimate of the damage, as we have reported to the committee, was 1.6 billion. And therefore, the 300 million rand will never be enough. But this is what we are trying to do. And we work with the Water Users Association and the irrigation boards in this regard. I thought this is important to give you background context because these are questions that I have received. Also, Chair, before I move into my ministerial priorities in the next slide, I think I want to bring to the attention of this committee. What are the three things that keep me awake for agriculture? Number one, the current fiscal framework. You would have noticed that the national budget has not yet been approved. So there are some challenges in that particular regard. Number two, we have seen that there are some major changes in the macro geopolitics, and therefore we will have some implications in terms of the so-called trade war, in terms of our major trading partners. And the third thing is very serious climate change. So the fiscal framework, the trade wars, and the climate change will be very much on my mind, very much on my focus, and I want to register this with the committee. I want, before I hand over to the HOD, I think I have made it clear that in the beginning of a term of office, a minister must consult widely, engage with the staff, reflect on what is happening, what is before me, come from the cabinet Bosberaad. After the election, you need to think, what is your main objective? So my ministerial priorities after consultation with the sector, with my staff, my key priorities is agricultural support, business support, food security and nutrition, and market access. But the Western Cape government has an apex priority. That is what you see in the middle, and that is the jobs strategy and agriculture, as you heard yesterday from the Minister of Finance in the Western Cape, how critically important that is for the sector. So we are here to create a 1 trillion rand economy in real terms and grow at least at 5% and generate about 600,000 jobs. Now, in order to do that, on the right-hand side, you will see the 7 pillars. I'm not going to waste time to go through that. We had some discussions about this before, but I'm happy to say that if people ask me, what is my key job? It is to create and help get the support from the industry to create jobs and food on your table. Jobs from an economic portfolio, food from an agricultural portfolio. So that's the introductory remarks that I would like to make, Chair. And as you said, because it is my birthday, I keep it short. Thank you. Back to you.
Minister, thank you. I will leave over to you to direct the proceeding going forward, if that is in order, Minister.
I will now hand over to the my HOD and the CFO to continue the presentation. Thank you, Chair.
Chair, thank you very much. The second slide really is just to paint a picture as to what the Western Cape agriculture's contribution is to the economy. I think in the province, about 11% of the GDP comes from agriculture and agri-processing sector. And on a national level, about 21% of all the people that work in agriculture is from this province of the Western Cape. But of course, exports are very important for us, and that is why what happens elsewhere in the world obviously reverberate with us in terms of the challenges that we foresee going into the future. But of course, this second last point I want to emphasize is that 66% of the value of what is produced in the Western Cape gets exported. And of course, as we sit here, about 55% of South Africa's exports come from this province of the Western Cape. Let's go to the next slide. This, Chair, I thought it was important just to paint a picture that says agriculture is a system that obviously operate in a global system. Obviously, the fact that there's ongoing wars in the world that obviously impact on us. I mean, we can refer to to Ukraine and Russia, and of course in the Middle East. That is something that will definitely affect agriculture in the Western Cape. The geopolitical fragmentation, what we see lately is tariff wars everywhere in the world and protectionism. That obviously is an issue that does affect the Western Cape agriculture. Of course, there's high risks everywhere and declining prices. And our farmers are having to deal with such issues. And of course, in terms of compliance, we've got issues around the green energy and the ESG compliance stuff. And of course, the big issue that the Western Cape will be affected the most is the issue around the climate change. And if you read through our documents here, you'll see some work that we're doing to enable us to adapt, but more importantly, to mitigate the impact of climate change. So if nothing else, this for us is a very important slide because the Western Cape agriculture is always exposed to these factors. And I think we must always remember this when we deliberate and when we make policies and when we make laws within our region. So this is quite, in our view, a very, very important slide that paints a picture of what agriculture looks like where we find ourselves. The next slide really is just to bring some message home in terms of the risk environment. That is highly dynamic. When we look at it, if you look at what was the list of the risks in 2023, October, and 2025, January, you can see the movement around the issues in terms of their ranking. And if you look at the 2025 in January, of course, the extreme weather, the wet, in terms of the drought, the hail and the flood is still the first risk for the sector. The global political fragmentation is a big issue. And of course, the third one is the exchange rate volatility. Number 4 is around animal disease and, of course, the lack of biosecurity. And we've always argued that in our view, any biosecurity lapses will be more catastrophic than COVID was, because it will affect public health as we know it. Of course, the issue around the trade barriers, we know what is happening already as we sit here with the executive orders coming from the Americas, something that is it's a massive issue for us. And of course, as we all sit here, we contemplate or can imagine what is going to happen in the next 18 months around AGOA, whether we are in or out. But that also is an issue that we've got to look at. Breakdown of critical infrastructure services was number 6, and the last one is increased trade barriers. And I'm sure the next report will obviously paint a different picture because we now have to respond to the issues that continue to confront the sector. So that is, in a nutshell, the picture I wanted to paint that confront the Western Cape agriculture. It suffices to say, with the 1 billion rand budget that we invest, I think the sector is pushing way above its weight. And it's more so because of the kind of relationships and partnering arrangements we've got with the private sector, the issue that Minister referred to around the blending financial support. We think it's probably because of that started already in 2009 that we're able to achieve these kind of numbers that we're looking at. I want to then pause here, Chairperson, with your permission, and I ask my CFO just to run through the numbers in terms of what the budget allocation looks like. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Chairperson and HOD. I will then take you through the numbers very briefly. I've tried to summarize it on the slides so we don't take much of the committee's time. So this slide really just shows you the movement in our budget from 2024-25, and I want to just maybe state upfront that these are the baseline or the main budgets per year. We don't take into account the adjustment budget because obviously each year comes with its unique circumstances, and that then skews the picture if you compare your main budget to an adjusted budget of a previous year. So we've decided to reflect on the main allocations of each year. So you can see the net movement from 24-25 to 25-26 is 2.6%, and it then grows 3.07% and a 4.25% to 2027-28 of 1.097 billion. I want to flag on this slide also that you can see our budget grows by 2.6%, which translates to 2.7 million rand to 2025-26. But bearing in mind, if you look at the things that we had to accommodate just for our cost of employment, you'll see the cost of living adjustment that we had to accommodate is 4.5 plus 1%, so a 5.5% increase for 25-26, and then for the other years, CPI, which was 4.5%. We also had to accommodate the pay progression of 1.5%, as well as increases in housing and medical allowances. And on expenditure alone, also the budget had to grow by 4.5%. So you can see that difference between the actual allocation growth and what it's costing us to deliver services is quite different. In terms of our funding sources, this is just to display how we are funded as a department in terms of that allocation of 1021 billion. Grants is 194 million. It's about 19% of our budget. It has grown from 176 million to 194 in 25-26, and the main reason there is the ILIMA grant that has normalized. There was a cut last year of 19 million, but we will reflect on that in the upcoming slides. Our own revenue has increased from 37 million to 39 million in 25-26, and you can see the small growth over the outer years. Also, that is about 4% of our budget. And then, of course, the provincial equitable share is the 787 million. In the previous year, the provincial equitable share portion was 804 million. So you can already see, or we have actually received a reduced budget when it comes to equitable share of about 16.9 million. If we just look at our grants, so as just mentioned, our ILIMA grant is back to the on par. We had a cut last year of 19 million, but for 25-26, it has normalized, and it's actually this year that the cut was this year. And then in terms of CASP, it's 119 million. In terms of CASP, we also had this year a significant cut of just over 12 million, even though they did increase the budget then again, allocation with 5 million, but that was very specific towards the ERP portion, which is our for extension support with very specific conditions on use there. But overall, the CASP budget was reduced. In terms of land care, it is similar, a slight growth in the land care allocation of about 4.5% over the previous year to 6.8 million. And the same with EPWP, there was a small growth of about 10%, which is also a very small portion of our budget. In terms of our earmarked funding, this is about 6.4% of our budget, with the Treasury. This is, of course, equitable share money that the Treasury then earmarks, and it's very specific in terms of how it can be used. We also have to report on this to the Treasury. So for ecological infrastructure, it is 42.1 million. The prior year was 40 million, so there was a 4.5% increase there. On river protection works, here we had a 38.5 million allocation in the previous year, and I keep saying previous, I should say 24-25, which is this year. So for next year, there was a reduction of about 17 million, but this is because 24-25 had an allocation that actually came from the previous year, 23-24, of 18 million, which was a once-off. So if you compare this number to 23-24, it is normalized again. It's on par with what it was before. And then our allocation for this replacement of our vineyard, which is a long-term project of about, which runs about to 2032-33, a very small allocation there of 2.7 million. It's actually half of what we received in 24-25. Then just very briefly, I'm not going to go through each number. This is just a reflection of the budget allocation for 25-26 per program and per economic classification. So there you can see, I've also in the far right indicated the percentage of the total allocation so that you can see the proportions of each of our programs in terms of how the budget is allocated. You'll see administration seems to be quite high at 15.8%, but this can be explained in that the department has unique must-pay costs, which other departments may not have, that is sitting in Program 1. And then also the earmarked funds for the Vineyard project is within Program 1, as well as the cost related to the cellar is also under Program 1. In terms of our sustainable resource use and management, there you'll see it's about 14%. And in this program, you'll also find our earmarked funds, as well as the land care and EPWP grant. The biggest allocation then is to our program 3, agricultural producer support and development, which is just over 305 million, or 29.9%. This is also then where the CASP and the ILIMA grants resides. In terms of veterinary services, they're about 11.5% of the budget. You can also see, for example, in our vet services, the COE cost is extremely high. It's about 80% of their budget, very, very high COE cost. And then the same goes for our program 5, technology and research development, also very heavy on the COE side, which puts immediate pressure then on the operational budget. Technology and research being 15.2%, and this is then also where our 7 research farms reside. Economic services, program 6 is 4.6%. I just also want to mention that agri-processing also sits within program 6. So that's just to mention. And then program 7 being the agricultural education and training, 6.8%, which is our Elsenburg College. That's their allocation of 69 million, and then rural development, which is 20.9 million, or 2.1%. Just to also highlight, you can see that our COE, for example, is about 51% of our budget. And as mentioned, we had to accommodate a 5.5% increase. The National Treasury did assist with a 1%. You need like a once-off allocation or a new allocation to assist with that 1%. But we are not funded in terms of that wage agreement, so we have to find it internally, and that really eats into our operational funding. I'll then hand back to HOD. Thank you.
The last slide really is just to demonstrate the extent to which we have created an ecosystem to support the work that we do. The list you see here is not exhaustive, but these are the organizations that we work with through a memoranda of understanding or agreement in some cases. But this is really why we have, in our view, a very successful agricultural system in the Western Cape. It is because of this kind of partnerships that we have created, which of course respond to what Minister of Finance, I think, referred to yesterday, in terms of blended financing as an approach that the Western Cape should be embracing, given the reality in terms of our fiscal. So this is really what we do, and we want to leave it at this point, Chairperson, and hand over to you. Thanks.
Thank you, Minister, HOD, and the Chief Finance Officer. Honorable members, there is the presentation before all of you. So in the blue book, reference in terms of questions should focus on page 52, between page 529 and 617. So honorable members, I will really like to see your hands, but while you are putting your questions together, I just want to say really, Minister and HOD and the CFO and the senior management that is present here today from the Department of Agriculture, really from our side, really, we just want to really say thank you for the work that you're doing. You are delivering, you know, like you say, pushing above your weight, you know, and which is great, really welcome. You still really standing up as a really standout department in the country in terms of your deliverance on agriculture. So I really just want to, from our side, really thank you in terms of your export quality. You know, the message abroad is quite positive about the produce from South Africa, especially from the Western Cape. Really, I just want to say thank you for your work that you are doing. It is important for our job retention and job creation, especially here in the Western Cape. Honorable members, I see no hands, so I take it that members have accepted the report. We can move on. Oh, I see one hand, Honorable Stoffel, Honorable Brand. I didn't see hands, so now I see hands. Okay, we'll take 3 hands at a time, and then obviously you'll have your questions, and then I'll take the next 3 hands, and then we will do follow-up thereafter. Honorable Stoffel, you first, Honorable Brandt, you second, and Honorable Ngonzo, you third, in that order.
All right. Thank you, Chairperson, for the opportunity. Let me first...
Can I just make another request? Can you just show your face, put your video on when you ask a question? Thank you, Honorable Stoffel.
Gosh. It's on now. Can you see me, Chairperson?
We can see you looking beautiful.
Oh, thank you, Chair. Chairperson, let me appreciate the opportunity. And first of all, good afternoon. Warm up MEC and his team, the HOD. Chair, let me go straight to the Blue Book. I welcome also the presentation from the Office of the HOD. Let me go straight to the Blue Book. My first question is based on page 529. Chair, since agriculture is the leading sector within the economic growth and job creation, yet it remains one of the most untransformed industries in the Western Cape, it is disappointing, Chair, to note that the department mission statement makes no explicit mention of economic transformation, particularly given the historical disparities in land ownership, access to markets, and participation in sector by previous disadvantaged individuals and community. Now, my question is, can the department confirm of it has a plan and commitment to meaningful economic transformation within the agriculture sector? And if so, what are the specific deliverables, measures, targets, and timelines to ensure the transformation is achieved? Then on page 530, the department also highlighted economic stability and the political legislative environment as critical factors for agriculture success. However, the Western Cape agriculture sector now face significant risk due to escalating tensions between South Africa and the US. Tensions have been exacerbated by the DA, Agri-Forum and Solidarity, foreign policies intervention, giving the very real possibility that AGOA may not be renewed. What specific mitigation measures has the department put in place to protect our farmers and agricultural workers from that fallout? If I can do 3, Chair, then I stop.
You can proceed, Honorable Stoffel. I'm going to rule on question that the statement you made on number 2, point number 2, but you can proceed.
All right, Chair. On page 530, in light of the MEC recent visit to Taiwan, a diplomatical contingent moved that may further strain relationship with the key trading partners like China. What was he doing there? And how are the province relations with China after his visit? Does the Western Cape export agriculture products to China? Let me stop there, Chair.
Before I really hand over to Honorable Bryant, I just want to say that in front of us is the department, and obviously, you know, we can have a political fight ourselves in the House, but here the department really will answer on what they are able to answer from their work that we have approved for them to do. So I would really appreciate that we can confine our questions to what they have presented to us. Really, I will appreciate. to bring the AfriForum and the DM here in this in the department, the officials will not be able to answer you on those matters. If you want to take the debate in the House, you can take the debate in the House, Honourable Member. So I hand over to Honourable Bryant.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I guarantee I won't ask any political questions. Chair, thank you very much to the Minister and his team and the HOD and CFO and everybody else. I'm really blown away every time I hear about the positive steps that are being taken to both sustain and also develop agriculture in the Western Cape Province. It really is so far ahead of any other province in terms of what's taking place. And that's borne out by a very simple statistic, which is that the Western Cape remains responsible for 55% of South Africa's agricultural exports. And, Chair, I don't have a lot of probing questions, but I think there are a couple of things that I'd like to mention that really stood out for me from the presentation. And, the investment into agriculture producer support and development, and, the highest percentage, almost 30% going into that. When we went out to Elsenburg and we went and met with some of those small business owners and the people who are engaged in sort of the small scale farming side of things, it is really fantastic to see what can be done with just a little bit of investment and a little bit of belief in people. I really think that this is a department under a minister who are both very, very keen on ensuring that things move in a positive direction. Chair, I do think we face some uncertain times when it comes to the current political situations. But the one thing that I do have faith in is that regardless of what happens with the GOA, the Western Cape will be able to sustain itself if we continue to focus on our core structures and systems and the existing relationships that the Minister and his team have built up over many years. I really think that we will be able to weather any storm and potentially even become a breadbasket for other parts of the country at some stage. Chair, I've got one issue that I would like to raise, and it's something that I often point out. When we talk about climate change, there is often a confusion between the terms mitigation and adaptation. Now, mitigation is what we can do to reduce carbon emissions effectively, and that way slow down the process of global warming. Adaptation, however, is how we adapt and change our existing systems so that climate change doesn't decimate and destroy what we currently have in place and put lives and livelihoods at risk. And it was mentioned by one of the presenters that the core focus should be mitigation as opposed to adaptation. And mitigation is definitely important. We have to do everything we can to reduce our carbon footprint. But if we compare our carbon footprint to the rest of the world, it is quite small. And mitigation alone is not going to save us from the impacts of climate change. And I really, really hope that built into all of these discussions and deliberations and the allocations going forward, that adaptation is put front and center, especially when it comes to agriculture, because there are certain parts of the country, as we know, where in a few years' time, we might not be able to grow certain crops. It's a challenge that Ethiopia has been facing in terms of coffee production, and we could face the same thing at some stage in terms of apples and Elgin, for instance. So those are my inputs, more inputs than questions, but I really want to welcome the allocations that have been made, and also to say thank you, Chairperson, for your hard work and oversights that have been conducted as well. Thanks.
Thank you, Honorable Bryant. Over to Honorable Gondro. And then after Honorable Gondro, we'll ask the department to respond to the questions. Thank you, Honorable Gondro.
Thank you, Chairperson. And I want to say, Chair, in protection of my member and the Deputy Chief Whip of my party, it would be unfair of you to rein us in, because as it is said that when we are in committees, the rules that apply in the House, they also apply in committees. And therefore, I think we are politicians, and the budgets are a political instrument of any party to deliver its own manifesto. So I think it would be unfair for us to say there are questions we cannot ask unless the question is out of order. So I think that is just, I think, unfair. I must say, Chair, I think the reality of AGOA actually is not something that we can discuss or we can wish away, especially because there's a lot of investment that was done by the provincial government. And one would recall even the previous, in the last parliament, the standing committees at some point even went out and met with the citrus industry around this particular issue, calculating the potential losses and everything. So it's not a discussion we can wish away. And I think for me, it is indeed important to understand what exactly are the plans, and in the also the visits that were taken by the minister, by the premier, to the US during Biden's time, and what now is happening under Trump, because there's already orders. There are tariffs that we would like to know whether the department at this point has actually started to factor in the implication thereof in granular detail, as they would have been, at some point telling us in the country about the potential jobs that will be lost if AGOA is not renewed. And indeed, with Trump administration, it looks like it may not be renewed. So I think it's important for us to know that, and we've already seen, I think, that line of leadership and policy choices under President Trump with the US aid, particularly in the Western Cape. So we are living that reality, and I think it's a reality that we cannot massage. We must speak about it so that we can anticipate and know what is going to happen. So I'm very much also interested of what exactly, and one needs a detail of the potential, losses of investment, if indeed such were not as it looks like at this point. And what are the discussions with the industry between this department in terms of, refocusing or re-strategizing, about that huge investment that would have been done, through the US markets, especially because we're anticipating at any time, as some of the tariffs have already been declared, Trump continues to do that. So I think it's important for us to be awake of that reality. The other one, Chair, I think is in page 543. I think in the blue book, it relates to the G4J, because with all of this uncertainty, with the fact, and also in your statement, you rehashed the point that the intention is all about jobs. Now one is interested to know. I think we're told by Treasury that actually, Minister, and I see also in 543 that the HOD is the one leading, the cluster, the economic cluster of the G4J. Because one is interested to understand whether are there specifics. I hear you talk about market growth, stimulating market growth through export and domestic markets, but in terms of job targets, are there any job targets, in your engagement with industry? What are we looking at, especially considering that, our agriculture has been having serious slumps, it will come down and go up, and now with all these uncertainties, with our projections, both of GDP projections, including jobs, what are we looking at? So one is interested in that, and also to say, currently with the third quarter results of 2024, where 175,614 agri workers were employed in the province, equaling about 18.5% of agri workers in the country. Can the department be able to provide us a detailed breakdown of how many of those agri workers and agri processing workers are seasonal, and how many are employed permanently? Are there any skills development program designed specifically to get seasonal workers to be employed permanently? So I think one is just interested in understanding that. In page 544, Chair, in the Blue Book, I'm worried with this particular issue, which I think even in the last conversation where Minister came to the committee, you see under sustainable resource use and management, we spoke about. My concern here, one, is on the fact that this particular program, even in terms of funding, it has actually received a budget down by 68.12%, according to page 563, from the previous. Its budget came down from 451 to 143 million. So for me, I think it's worrying. It's worrying because the issue being raised in page 544 about land use, continues to be a challenge as it is explained by the department there. And I think I recall Minister really emphatic about this particular challenge, and I'm worried. There we are told of about 555 applications for subdivision and rezoning. And one is interested, Minister, to check out of those 555, what percentage thereof, was about rezoning agricultural land to something else outside of agriculture, and what has been the results? And because we know that part of that process is that the Department of Agriculture is supposed to make comments, to the very process of that zoning application. And I'm interested to know what has been the position of the department and the responses in terms of those land use application, because I think this situation is worrisome. And for me, it's worrisome that even that particular program is actually receiving less money, given the extent of the difficulty that this particular unit must deal with. The last one in this round, Chair, I would like to understand, perhaps also in the Minister's remarks and the HOD, do we have, in the growth of our agri industry, as it was presented, that we are responsible for 55% of South Africa's agri products, and 66% thereof, are being exported. So we play a very significant role in the question around the transformation of the sector. Do we have numbers of the percentage of growth, particularly measured by smallholders and emerging farmers? Do we have that? What is the current growth rate, if we do have, of this, in trying also to ensure that we deal with the level of concentration of the industry, which is also one of the challenges of our agricultural sector in South Africa, is the level of high concentration. And I think this measure of understanding smallholder farming and emerging farmers actually assist us to see if indeed data is showing that there is a steady, or slight growth in that respect. So I just want to stop there for now, Chair. Thank you so much.
Thank you, honourable members. I think just to the point that I made a ruling earlier, honourable members, we are a multi-party forum here, holding the government obviously to account. So I really like us, the way you phrased the question, Honourable Mbondo, it's really direct to areas that they are really responsible for. That's the point I was trying to drive home. But Honourable Minister, I hand over back to you to answer the question. But before I hand over, Honourable members, if I may really ask that when you speak, just put your camera on. I did not want to interfere with you while you're speaking, Honourable Gondo. Thank you very much. Minister, over to you.
Apologies, Chair, for that.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you to the members, Stoffels and Dave Bryant and Honourable Member Nkontlo for these questions. Firstly, the question from Honourable Member Stoffels about the plans and the commitments for meaningful transformation. The HOD will speak to that. In terms of the US tensions and what we are doing, obviously, there is geopolitical developments that we simply cannot ignore. The direct question was, and that was from both Honourable Member Nkontlo and Honourable Member Stoffels, about what is happening given the current geopolitical developments. Well, we have a government of national unity, so in this particular context, we would very much like to work in sync with the government of national unity. We know that the President has yet to appoint a delegation to visit the United States. We also know that in terms of the Central Trade Authority in South Africa is DTIC, and they are currently busy with some national to national levels of negotiation. So we do not want to do anything that harms those particular developments. So what we are currently doing at a subnational level, very important, because you certainly, as the major region for export, cannot simply sit back and do absolutely nothing. So this is what I have done in the meantime. I have met with the EU Ambassador, Dr. Sandra Kramer, because this is a major trading bloc. We have met with members of the EU and the European Parliament, very important stakeholders. They also visited the National Parliament. In addition, as you know, 30% of South Africa's rooibos tea goes to Japan, and I have met with the Japanese ambassador as well as the Japanese consul general. I've also met with the and signed a cooperation agreement between this government and the NBI, the National Business Initiative. Also on the back of that is the support we get for climate change from the Danish government. So I have met with the ambassador of Denmark. As you know, we have a new US consul general. I have met with her twice, and we also had a business engagement with her at the official residence. You know that we have 400,000 visitors every year, tourists coming from the United Kingdom. So I had also a meeting with the Consul General of the United Kingdom. I've asked my team to also meet a delegation from the ASEAN countries. They have given me excellent report. We also know the significant relationships that we have with the government of the Netherlands, and I've also met with the newly appointed ambassador of the Netherlands during a business breakfast, evening with Westgrow and Agri South Africa and the SATI, as well as the Fresh Produce Export Forum. I have met with the ambassador of Thailand. About last week, I also met with the governor of the Irongo region in Namibia, because they are very advanced in terms of green hydrogen in the just energy transition. So what we do is using soft diplomacy. When you have geopolitical tensions, you have to lower the political temperature, and that's exactly what we are trying to do, because these are very important trading relationships that we need to protect our farmers and the work. Just in terms of the citrus industry, 30,000 jobs are, for example, directly linked to AGOA. In South Africa, overall, is about 130,000 jobs. So we have to be very tactful, diplomatic, and this is not only me, but also my government, but also members of this committee. All of us have a moral obligation and the responsibility to do everything that is possible to save those particular jobs. Honourable Member Bryant, thanks. Yes, I think you are absolutely right. We live in a time of uncertain times. We know that AGOA is up for renewal in September this year, and there are some major tensions. And I think you are absolutely right. There are systems and processes that we are having in place to sustain whatever happens in September. Thanks for your, again, reminding us of the work that Dr. Trautmann is continuously reminding us in terms of climate change mitigation and adaptation. Honourable Member Kontla, yes, the AGOA, as you rightly pointed out, is very strategic, very important, but we also have our director, Bongiswa Matoti here. He has all the figures and the facts about the implications for AGOA. This is very important. Obviously, you want to make sure that you are in sync with the national government and DTIC. Last week, we had a meeting also with this week, with the Agricultural Trade Forum, discussing with the national government about agricultural trade. So that is very important. Well, as you know, the president will send a high-level delegation. He's still consulting with the industry. I have consulted with the industry also from the agricultural sector. I've met with them here in this boardroom, with the fruit industry, with the Citrus Growers Association, with the Berries South Africa, as well as with the South African table grape industry. So I have consulted with them, and we are also planning another engagement with some major exporters to the US. So there's a lot of things, but these are not things that you put up in the open to entice conflict. You do use soft power to protect jobs in South Africa. So I've asked the industry, what is your strategy? And they told me the strategy is the following. 44% of South Africa's primary agricultural outputs also went on the African continent last year, 2024 figures. This is from AgBiz, very credible research from Wandile Suslobo. So that is a very important market for us. And also now the industry has also indicated to me markets that they must protect is those in the Middle East, markets in the United Kingdom, the European Union, but also look up to more new markets, to particularly Asia and the Middle East. In fact, over this weekend, there will be a delegation from the fruit industry. They will be going visiting, I think, over this weekend. Today is Friday. They will leave over the weekend to India, 1.5 billion people. That's very significant. So that is what it is. And then the questions relating to the seasonal workers, the HOD will respond to that, as well as the issue of the sustainable resource use management. The HOD will direct where that discussions will go. Come again? Chair, somebody was talking there in the background?
No, you can continue, Minister. Apologies.
Thank you, Chair. I will now hand over to the HOD. We are in this committee to deal with the technical dimension of agriculture, and we will therefore restrict us to the technical dimension of the budget and the technical dimension of agriculture.
Minister, thank you very much. With respect to the question that I think Member Stoffel raised, I think Minister had responded partly to that. But if you look at the outcomes of the department, one of the outcomes we want to achieve is a transformed and inclusive agricultural sector. So that should tell you our commitment to an inclusive agricultural sector. In fact, that is our vision. If you look at the vision of the department, it talks directly to that, an inclusive, united agricultural sector in balance with nature. That's really what we do. But if you also look at one of the slides, you look at program 3, that takes the lion's share of the department's budget. That entire budget looks at primarily the new farmers that were brought about by your land reform and so on. So that is really the commitment that we have here to ensure that the sector is inclusive. And everything that we do is to ensure that we've got that sector in the Western Cape. And that is the reason why as early as 2009, we've entered into memorandum of understanding with the industry, because we believe that in the end, we want to create one agricultural sector in the Western Cape. And there's so much goodwill that we enjoy from our industry partners also to support the land reform in the Western Cape. And the numbers are out there in terms of what we have done over the last 3 iterations around land reform. And that story signal really the extent to which there is commitment, but also that the private sector itself is committed to ensure that we build one agriculture in the Western Cape. But I think Minister responded sufficiently to the issue around AGOA. But suffice to say that maybe because of the foresight this end, as early as 2023, we have released what we call Western Cape Africa Agriculture Strategy. And I think at that time, we're beginning to say, how do we become intentional by looking at opportunities on the African continent? I think that also helps us in terms of what we need to do going into the future. But secondly, I think about a month or so ago, I met with the team from the BFAP to begin to say, let us work together with the industry to look at export diversification strategy. Because it's important that we don't have all our eggs in one basket. And of course, we know what is happening and what is coming in terms of those executive orders. But it's important that we, together with the industry, look at what else we need to be doing to support our fine products in terms of the export market. So indeed, we are not relaxed here. We're working extremely hard together with the industry to look at those options. The minister referred to the meeting earlier this week with the Trade Forum, but also with the fruit industry this week and last week, again to unpack what we need to be doing together with those colleagues, because AGOA is really hanging in a balance. But in the end, we've got to still sell our fine products elsewhere on the globe. With respect to the issue that Member Bryant raised, I would like to, at some point, maybe when I conclude, ask Ilse just to reflect. And indeed, you are correct. We cannot just focus on mitigation. We also need to look at adaptation. And if you drive throughout the Western Cape, you will be excited to see that farmers are already adapting. You look at the undercover farming that is taking place everywhere in the province. It's again the farming sector beginning to say, how do we adapt to the reality of the climate change? But I know this is a subject that is very close to Dr. Trautmann's heart, and I would really want to just reflect a little bit in terms of the work that we are doing in that space. Member Nkondlo, I think you raised quite a number of issues, and I think our AGOA minister reflected on. In terms of whether those jobs are seasonal or permanent, I would ask Bongiswa to reflect to that. But also in terms of what is the profile of those people that are employed, I think Bongiswa will reflect to that. But I think the one point we want to raise here, which is a very important point, is that we keep hearing that the numbers in terms of job numbers in agriculture are declining. And I think late last year, December, when we got the third quarter report, we took an issue with the numbers with Stats SA, and we have engaged with our National Director General together with Agri SA and BFAP. We are beginning to say, I think the time has come for us to get proper accounting in terms of the numbers, because we are told that the numbers have gone down in terms of the jobs, but the reality on the ground is something else. And I think that's the project that we have begun to work on, to begin to tell the correct story around what the impact of agriculture is with respect to the job numbers. You referred to an issue around the land use. I think that is always a big challenge for us. And the mandate we have, and we are not ashamed about it, is that we want to protect agricultural land. And I think we do that all the time. To the extent that a lot of developers really don't like us, because our mandate is to protect that agricultural land, and our commenting is really about protecting that. But I would also, at the end, allow us here just to reflect on that in terms of what we do. The story around the budget that is declining for SRUM, I think the confusion there, Member Nkondlo, is always the fact that we get a lot of disaster allocation to that program. And if you compare this year's allocation to last year, you'll definitely begin to see that there isn't necessarily a decline in the allocation. In fact, if anything, there is some increase in that allocation if you take out the funding that comes as a result of a disaster. So I think that's really it. So if you agree, I would want to then ask Asia to respond. Bongiswa follow Asia, and then the DDG Trautmann just to reflect on the climate change work that we're doing. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, HOD. With regards to land use management, the Department of Agriculture is responsible for providing comments. So we're not a authorizing authority. So we provide comments to municipalities and to sector departments, but the decision for it ultimately lies with those departments and the municipality. Thank you.
Bongiswa. Bongi, do you want to come in? Ms. Matoti?
Yes, Chair. I think technology is actually getting, hold of me actually in here. Thank you, Chair. Chair, we are actually doing an analysis actually of employment actually within the sector, and our focus is mainly really looking at both primary and processing actually agri workers. So what I think I will actually do, there is actually a very detailed report that we've actually put together, Chair. And I think what I will do is actually to share it with Member Nkondo so that he can actually get actually a picture actually of the trends. And of course, agriculture is the biggest employer of actually, both permanent actually and seasonal workers, of which seasonal workers, are taking actually about 40% actually of our, sectors actually employment in terms actually of the trends that we're actually doing. Thank you, Chair.
Yes.
Thank you, HOD, Chair and members. Thank you, Member Bryant, for the question on climate change. Yes, the methods of combating climate change and working towards a resilient agricultural sector is about mitigation and adaptation. However, the mitigation part for some farmers, it's quite limited. And the adaptation part is the part that they would focus on. But there's a link between the two as well. So if we look, for example, at conservation agriculture, which is an adaptation method of production under drought and also water scarce conditions, it is linked to mitigation because doing conservation agriculture itself is prohibiting the release of CO2 into the environment. We do numerous support systems for farmers on the adaptation part. HOD mentioned undercover farming, but there's also water and irrigation methods, tools that we use referring to Fruit Look, and the work that's being done by my colleague Asha Peterson and her team, but also adaptation to the extent that a number of farmers are looking at climate change adapted cultivars, and we can refer to some wine cultivars that's being used in that regard. And then lastly, our involvement in the Mediterranean Climate Action Partnership. The meeting of the regions will be in Cape Town in May, 6 to 9 May. And at that point, 16 regions, Mediterranean regions, will also sit around the table and talk about adaptation as well as mitigation. Thank you so much.
Chair, just finally, the last two questions that Member Nkondo raised, which I just noted here, is it is correct that we lead the PFA2 that looks at market growth through export and domestic markets. That is what we are responsible for. And I think in terms of the jobs target, broadly, the G4J had set itself a target for 600,000 jobs. And that is really the target that drives all of us, is the apex priority of the Western Cape government. The last question was whether we can tell the percentage of the production or the products that comes from new farmers. I would like to use that context. It is always going to be very difficult because as and when farmers take their products to the market, they take it through the chain, and many a times they work with the commercial sector. So it becomes very difficult to tell which apple come from a land reform farmer and which one comes from a commercial farmer. And I think we've answered this before. It becomes very difficult in that sense. But suffice to say, I think the evidence that we have in the Western Cape is that the farmers that are on land reform farms are actually doing well because the studies are also demonstrating that they're also in the export space, but they do that with their commercial counterparts. Chair, that's the response to the question that had been posed. Thank you very much.
Thank you, HOD. Thank you, Minister, and thank you, DDG, and Mayor Bongisa from the Market Access. I have got one hand for this round of question. Is there no any other hand? Going once, going twice, going thrice. Honorable Constable, and if there are follow-up hands, please raise your hand. I see two hands, but I can't see who's the second person. Okay, it's Honorable Stoffel. Okay, Honorable Constable, and followed by Honorable Stoffel and Honorable Gondro. Over to you, Honorable Constable. Thank you.
Very much. You're not keeping to your word by keeping the minister not too long. So, Minister, I will be very short. The chair is not keeping his word. Minister, MEC, for me, it's about accountability and transparency. And I know you as a person who is very transparent when it comes to government issues. So my questions or comments will be in that regard. Firstly, with regards to the grants received, I believe there's beneficiaries. There was beneficiaries in the past, and there will be beneficiaries in the future with regards to CASP and Litsema and Landcare and EPWP. If there's a list available of the beneficiaries, can you please avail that to us, making sure that you have the beneficiary names, if it is companies or so, and also what kind of amount are they getting with regards to this grants, specifically from which regions are they from? You know, I'm very interested in what you're spending in my constituency area, which is the Central Karoo municipal area. Secondly, MEC HOD, I heard there's a department in agriculture that is dealing with regulatory methods. With regards to the protection of our people who are staying on the farms and the illegal eviction, do we have a fund to protect those people, or are we not really interested in protecting our own people on the farms, not to be illegally evicted from their homes, putting in communities, and lost a lot of years that they are working on the farms? Second thing on the regulatory methods, the HOD was talking about it's only the people of the Western Cape that is working on the farms. Me and him know that is not really true. There are illegal foreigners working on farms. Is it possible for us to get a fund to deal with this issue? Do we have numbers of the illegal foreigners working on the farms? Because they are taking the work of our people, South Africans, on the farms. You know, it is important for us to keep the food security going, but it is not right that illegal foreigners are sitting in work opportunities that our people must sit in or must have. Then, Chairperson, page 548 and 549, there's there's on the agricultural producer support and development. There's an assistant agricultural practitioner. I believe there's 5 million that you allocated to that program. Again, how many? Hello, am I still audible?
You're audible, Honorable Constable.
Yes.
You can proceed.
Again, how many people will be employed? It is contract works, and how long will the contracts be? Will it be students, or will it be people that already studied? And again, what will the subdivision with regards to the regions? On the support to the 3,800 farmers, the small scale farmers, again, where is those farmers allocated, and how much money are we giving to them? Yeah, I think for now this is it, Chairperson. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Constable, for reminding us that we mustn't keep the minister too long. So I hope Honorable Stoffel and Honorable Gondlo will also remind me. Thank you very much, Honorable Stoffel. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, I'm getting worried if you are indicating like that, because here you have put this budget vote for today, knowingly it's Friday. So, Chair, I just want to caution the HOD in terms of answering. There's something that I didn't feel comfortable with, that he indicated they are not playing, they are working here. No one said they are playing in this department. I never indicated that they are playing. So we must count our words, because you might just trigger something and it can go to something else. So let's stick to the work and let's answer what we can answer. I'm very much happy that the minister came up very broad there and bold to protect me against the chairperson in terms of my question, because the minister have answered my question. So let us not be defensive, because we are not assisting at the end of the day the committee itself in its work. So the committee is doing very well, by the way. But there is this clarity that we want to be clarified. That's why we've got questions. So in terms of my question of my first question, Chair, I'm coming to the issue that Member Constable have raised about these foreigners that is owning land, whilst our people, especially in the rural areas, whilst our people don't have that luxury to own land, because the Chinese there in our area, they are owning land. You ask yourself, how did it happen? And our people got land, but there is no assistance from the department to come and see how to assist these people there. So to me, if it comes to our people, you will really find me in the wrong side, because I'm here to defend our people. Chair, let me go to my next question. On 564, table 8.3, Casidra. My question there is, what are the reasons for the decrease in the budget for Casidra? It is less than the main appropriation of the last year budget. So what is the reason for the decrease there? And then also on 571, disaster risk reduction. What are the reasons for the decrease in the budget for disaster risk reduction? And what is the rationale behind this decision, especially given the impact of Cape Storm to the agri sector? I thank you, Chair.
Honorable members, and I want to make a ruling, Honorable Ngondo, with regards to words that sounded like threatening the official, which obviously us as members, we must really not allow ourselves to get there. We are here to hold the department to account, but to threaten that the official is
Chair,
trigger
I never
something.
threatened anyone. The official offended me, and you never protected me. Chair, let us be fair here, please.
Honorable
The
Stoffel.
official offended me as a member, and Chair was quiet.
Honorable Stoffel.
No, Chair,
Let's
be fair.
Honorable Stoffel, I'm on the podium. I'm speaking. I didn't intercept you while you were talking. Yeah, so my call is that let's not use the word like you're gonna trigger something. You are threatening the official. We are here to hold the executive
I'm
to
not
account.
going to allow that. You are not protecting me as a member. You keep on saying the member first threatened me and the member first offended me. You never protected me. Can you protect also me as a member?
Honorable Stoffel, I didn't hear
Chair.
that. I will listen to the handset. I'll make a ruling, but I'm making a ruling on this one, but I'll make a ruling on the handset after listening. Okay, thank you. Honorable Ngonto, over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Chair. I want to say, Chair, the responses would always leave us as members, partly not clear when what we had asked, and if an official does not ask for clarity so that there is an understanding, leaves the question partly answered or unclarified. And I wish to just raise that matter with the colleagues so that, you don't want to spend on a day of minister's birthday, almost 2 hours sitting, and the more we listen to the answers, the more we are actually more confused or not clear. And I want to appreciate the response of Mema Dut to say she will provide me, a write-up or something to read to clarify my question. And I would like the official, or the department to still answer my question on the issue of the applications in page 544. Because for the official to just simply say, we do not authorize making an assumption that my question was about the authorization of the department, which I stated very clear that it is our understanding that the department would make inputs. Those were my words. So I'm interested that my question gets to be answered so that indeed when we are in this platform, the same courtesy you are asking, Chair, must come from both ends. I want to continue by asking the HOD and if they could send the response, in particular on the J4J. He indicates that it's about 600,000 jobs, and my interest is whether there is a specific number from this, because I would assume, as it is said, is for all the departments, that what is the target for this particular department as a contribution to that particular 600,000. So that's my interest with my question I was asking on the G4J. And then, Chair, when I was looking at the Blue Book, especially, and also I think the CFO, if I'm not mistaken, was also making the reference about, some of the cost, in particular that the admin cost of this department is high. And she did explain, why different to the other departments, because it's sitting at 15.8, different to the other departments. The question I just want to raise is that when I was reading the vote, one saw that at most in terms of, and I'm raising just on COE, that you've got an increase in most of the programs between 10 up to 13%. But there is a spike in the SRU program of about 28% increase in as far as their budget for COE, and also Program 6 at 21.1%. Can they just maybe indicate to us, what would that mean, or what would have driven such a variation, in terms of the COE? And I'm raising this, Chair, that, when we're sitting at a scoper level with a .P and Treasury, and it was looking just at Treasury's, issues of a human resource. One of the things that .P told us is actually a threshold that they were indicating, which they were saying most departments are above in the province. I think are above. They are around, the average was around 30-something%, where they were saying Treasury is around 20 in terms of that particular threshold, because they are starting to say in departments, one of the things that .P is looking at is streamlining, because they are saying others may not be meeting the threshold, and the issue is actually starting looking at the organizational structure, whether this organizational structure is efficient. And I'm raising this in context, of the fiscal consolidation, trying the cost containment that we've been talking about, which is why I think my eyes would always run to look at the increase or decrease in some of these particular costs. So I'm raising that and trying to understand where would be the Department of Agriculture in terms of that threshold by .P. And also, in as far as admin is concerned, one is also very concerned when you look just on the summary, especially on the summary of these payments in the various pages, especially where it provides you the breakdown, because in some you would see almost particularly on consultants, where you would see actually almost 100, more than 100% increase on consultant. And what was even strange for me, is actually on things like venues and facilities in page 596. Actually, you would see that venues have increased, the budget there has increased significantly. And also, if you look at consultants, there's 100% increase thereof. So, in as far as trying to look at this cost containment, one would always be looking at how, this particular budget that has been put up would be spent going forward. So I'm interested actually in page 611, just to point another one, Chairperson. You've got almost 1,900. It's a small number when you look at it in terms of venues and facilities. Perhaps the department can explain is the nature of the program activities. So for me, I think I'm interested in understanding how such management of costs gets to be done in the department. So I think it's that one would like to sort of understand, particularly around the actual technical numbers, on the side of the budget. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, honorable members. Minister and HOD, over to you.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'm making a request that one of your resolutions must be that the Standing Committee must never sit again on my birthday. I have now signed an executive order to this effect. On a lighter note.
Sustained. Sustained.
Okay. But I want to say to the committee, I value and appreciate the robust engagement that we have here. And I love Honourable Member Beauty Stoffels. She knows I love her. Love changes everything, even in the committee. And therefore your questions are therefore also appreciated by this committee, and your strong views are equally appreciated by this department. I think if there's never an intention to brush off or to belittle or to diminish any input, but if you are offended, whether that's now intentional or not intentional, but I can certainly give you the assurance it was not intentional. But that does not matter. I studied sociology and I studied psychology. That's the way you feel. I must respond to your feelings. And if you were offended, as the minister, I want to apologize. And I want to put that on record, but I can certainly tell you there was no intention. But that doesn't matter. It's the way you have received the message, and we apologize. Also, Honourable Member Constable, yes, I am a man for transparency, and I will answer every question. The HOD and the accounting officer will respond to the issue of the granted beneficiaries, the EPWP. You refer to the regulatory stuff. They're going to respond to that. The illegal evictions and the illegal foreigners. We had some work in that particular regard we have done, but I think the HOD will respond to that. Also, Honourable Member Stoffel, I'm also worried about the issues that you raised, that some foreigners get access to land. And I see Honourable Member Nkondlo has also referred to the issue of the zoning and rezoning applications. We do have, as Honourable Member Asia Peterson has indicated, we are not the final authority on it. People do apply, but I can tell you, everywhere when we see an application of agricultural land for any other thing, I'm the Minister for Agriculture. I'm not the Minister for Housing. I'm not the Minister for Golf Estates. So I reject all of those applications. I must, like you, and I want to thank you for your stance, I must fight for agricultural land, because if we let everybody build housing and estates and security estates or golf estates, then we're going to have a situation where we will have to import food. And I do not want to go that route. And honourable members, you will know that last year, it is in this report that was tabled here, 66% of the Western Cape agricultural production were exported. So we're an export region, and if we want to export more, have export growth, I think we must protect our agricultural land, and I want to thank the views of the committee. But I also want the committee to be fair. If there's agricultural land that in the last 10 or 15 years was unproductive, and the research and the land quality and the water quality tells us, and the research tells us there's no prospect of having any possibility of productive, turning that into productive agricultural land. I think we must let those things go if there are evidence that suggests this. Because as Dr. Troutman always reminds me, Minister, agriculture is about three things. She tells me it is about soil, it is about water, and it's about the climate. But I am the Minister for Agriculture, I'm not going to approve shopping centers left, right, and center. I must protect land. Otherwise, we're going to have to import food, and I don't want to go there. Import of food is very expensive. Then, Honourable Member Nkondlo, I think you are right. You asked about the G4J. You said that there are 600,000 by 2035, and you're absolutely right. That is 600,000 across every. This is in terms of the minister yesterday. You will recall that the Minister of Finance yesterday mentioned in her budget speech that there will be 155 G4J projects that must translate and assist us in this particular regard. So we also on record that it's not the government that creates jobs, it is the business that creates jobs. We must create an environment for businesses to create jobs. You would have noticed yesterday the minister indicated in her budget for the MTEF about 43 billion rand goes to the growth for jobs in part of that specific. Honourable Member Nkondlo asked legitimate questions about the COE. I know her from the previous 5 years and the other 5 years when I was the MEC of Finance. She has a close eye on the COE, and this is what the colleagues will answer in terms of the COE in respect of that particular question. Yeah, I think that is it. Let me just see here. Yeah, they will answer the rest, Chair. And I will just going to send my wife a WhatsApp that you are still keeping me busy.
Honorable members, yeah, we allow the HOD to answer, and then we can release the minister when he wants to be released, and we can continue with the department. Over to you, HOD. Thank you.
Chair, thank you very much. And maybe foremost, I must, if what I said came across as an attack or not respecting the committee, I think I want to apologize on that. It was never the intention. So I just want to put that out there that if that is how it came, so profuse apology from where I'm seated. And if I can now move straight to Member Constable's questions. In terms of the beneficiary list, I think we'll have to be guided by the legal services in terms of the POPIA Act. But if that is indeed allowed, we will happily share that with the committee, because there's absolutely nothing that we would want to hide from the committee, because we want to enable you to do your work as well as oversight committee. So once we get that guidance, we'll be happy to provide the list. With respect to illegal eviction, I'm afraid that is not a mandate of the department, but we deal with those challenges all the time through our farm worker development program. And we refer them to the National Department for Assistance through the ESTA Act, because that's where illegal evictions are dealt with. And the legal, the Rural Development Program of the department does assist those who may be affected in terms of that. With respect to illegal foreigners on farms, it is something that we raise consistently with commercial agriculture and smallholder agriculture. But in the end, I think the message we get from our stakeholders is that if anybody has such evidence, you take the matter to employment and labor, or even to SAPS, because even themselves farmers know that they're not allowed to do that. And that's the commitment we have from our stakeholders. But it's something that we would also want to encourage committee members to take that, if they are aware of such issues, take it to employment and labor, and or even to SAPS, because that's something that we've got a commitment of our commercial agriculture and smallholder agriculture in the Western Cape. With respect to your question around the AAPs, as to how long will they be appointed, it's for now it's a year contract, because it's funded under the conditional grant of CASP, 5 million rands. And I think when we looked at the numbers, we're looking at about 14 to 16 such people in the province, and on a state line, it will be 2 per district, and if you like, maybe 2 or 3 and 4 in some instances, but we're looking at about 14 to 16 people that will be appointed on a year contract. The other question around the 3,800, that relates to the site visit. That's the advisory services we give to farmers across the province. I would wish to support financially about maybe that number of 3,800 farmers. But I'm unable to provide conditional grant support to that number because I've got limited resources. And on the state line, just to share with the committee, I think the demand for support for us, it's around 500 million rands of the conditional grant. And as you can see, for CASP, I only have about 100 million rands. So there's not enough that we're able to support given the limited resources. With respect to Member Stoffel, your question around CASIDRA's budget and the disaster risk reduction allocation that has gone down, I think it's a matter that my CFO will respond to happily. With respect to the threshold that Member Nkonzo referred to in terms of the COE and that, I think the CFO will also reflect on that. Suffice to say, Member Nkonzo, that the organizational structure of the department, as it has been approved for over 15 years ago, it places us on about 1,600 staff members in this department. As you can tell, in terms of our numbers, we're not there yet, and we also don't believe that we'll get there in the nearest future because of the fiscal reality that confront us. With your question on the zoning or rezoning, I think it's on 571, if I recall. It's something that if we misunderstood your question, we're happy to then provide a write-up to yourself. Suffice to say in the end that if you look at our annual report for the past 3 years, I think on average we dealt with about 600 of those that we commented on, and as it was said that we are a commenting authority, but if at all we misunderstood your question, we are happy to provide a written response so that we are responsive in terms of what the question is, and we then provide such details as and when is required. I want to hand over to my CFO chair so that she can respond to the question that I referred to her. Thanks.
Thank you very much, HOD and Chairperson and member. Maybe just to share the movement in the CASIDRA allocations or the use of CASIDRA and the budget allocated. So in terms of 24-25, it's been a bit of a unique year in that, as mentioned, there was a 38 million once-off allocation in this year, for example, and also the 300 million in the adjustment budget. So with that not being in our budget for 25-26, there would have been a reduction then specifically on that line item with CASIDRA because of the reduction in allocations of the budget in totality, but also the reduction in the CASP project funding, as mentioned in the presentation as well. There was a specific cut on the projects, and we make or work with CASIDRA as our partner. So there was also a cut in the allocation that we would have had to CASIDRA otherwise if the project's funding was not cut. So that also links directly to the number that you see for sub-program for 2.4, disaster risk reduction. Again, that 300 million was allocated in that sub-program. And as mentioned, there was also there also is where the once-off earmarked funds of this financial year is then no longer applicable in 25-26. So there's an immediate reduction in that sub-program. You want me to continue? Okay, in terms of the CO increases, we are very mindful of that. I think in the department as across the province, we are managing that very tightly. I think with the directives of TPSA, and we've established a critical post committee in this department. So we really critically look at what is necessary. You mentioned a spike in, for example, program 2. It's one of the programs where it's a very technical program, and they have had a number of vacant technical positions that has negatively impacted on their ability to provide services. And I think in light of the additional allocations as well that we've received in our budgets, it was necessary for us to critically look at the capacity of that program. So over and above the actual increase of COE that we are expected to increase it by the 5.5% and all the related costs, this was, for example, program 2 was one of the programs that we have identified where there was a number of posts approved for filling in the new financial year, so hence the spike. And there's, of course, a lot of specialists in our department that cost more than your normal, if I may say, normal salary as in terms of for your OSD post, for example, that's much more expensive. And then also the requirement, it's really the nature of the work in agriculture. I think there's a lot, for example, on the farms, we have almost standard overtime that the farms must be managed almost 24/7, and there are additional costs in that regard. So it really comes down to that. But we are very mindful of the COE because, as mentioned, it is a big portion of our budget, and because we do need the people to actually do the work and deliver the service, it's necessary to have the hands on deck to actually deliver our services. But I think we are very mindful, and we try our very best to limit it to absolutely critical positions because we know it actually eats into our operational budget because we have to look after the vacant or the funded posts first. So I think that is for me on the COE. And then the member also mentioned in terms of the threshold, I think HOD, we will have to just have a look at that. I don't have that offhand to maybe make that comparison, but we can always come back to the committee on that. On the cost, almost cost containment in terms of when it comes to our consultants and contractors and the agency and support services, it is really, again, the nature of the work that we do. And of course, your SCOA only allows for certain line items to use for allocations. So, for example, if in terms of our consultants, our Fruit Look contract is in that line item. That is something that we have an agreement with for a number of years, which is the bulk of that. In terms of contractors, for example, in Program 2, they would make use of casual labor, which is quite a high cost for them when it comes to the fencing part of their work. Putting up fencing on farms and against the national roads. And then, for example, we also we make use of outsourced services, for example, at the vet labs, where we can't assist with all the services and testing of samples, for example, then we would actually make use of outside labs to assist us with some of that. So it's really the nature of the work. I think I must also just add that we have standard operating procedures and we have policies in place with regards to cost containment, which is actually more strict than what is prescribed. So we really are mindful of how we make use of these type of services and how we contain costs as far as possible within the constrained environment. I hope I didn't miss anything, but thank you, HOD.
Thanks, Chair. That's the feedback from ourselves.
Thank you, HOD, and thank you, Minister and the CFO. Honourable members, I think we have exhausted the questions. Obviously we'll have an opportunity to do resolution, and if there are other burning issues that you want to really take with the department, you will have the opportunity to do so during our time of resolution. Can we proceed, honourable members? Our next item obviously is the consideration and adoption of the draft report. So my really call now is to really give an opportunity to members who want to express their support for the vote, and those who express their non-support of the vote before us.
Chair, are we therefore required to exit the meeting?
Actually, not really. I thought we'll do this and then we can allow you to exit the meeting. Would you prefer not to hear whether we support or not support your vote, Honourable Minister?
Chair, I'm in your hands. I will submit to your command.
Thanks, Honourable Minister. According to the agenda, if I look at the agenda, is that we will do the consideration and adoption of the report, and thereafter then vote of thanks to Minister and Casidra, and obviously closing remarks. Am I correct, Procedural Officer? I see Honourable Ngondlo's hand is up, but can I ask Sharon to come first?
Chair, I think usual practice is that we do the closing remarks now, and then we do the committee business once the department and minister has left the building. But having said that, if the department and minister wants to stay for the rest of the meeting, they're also welcome to do so. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for your advice. Thank you very much. Honourable Ngondlo, you wanted to make a point?
Yes, I wanted to make the point made by Sharon that practice has always been that the department will conclude and allow the department to leave and do the business of the committee.
Okay. No, thank you very much, Minister. You were spot on. Minister and HOD, I give you the opportunity to make your closing remarks.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to members of the committee. I will do the comprehensive remark on behalf of the department in vote 11. Firstly, I want to thank the committee for the questions. All these questions sharpen us in terms of our accountability. because one of the values of this government is accountability. So we appreciate also the robustness of these questions, and thank you very much. By the nature of this business, sometimes people feel that questions were not answered or not adequately answered. They are always very happy to also put something in writing to us, and we're very happy to also respond in that nature. So thank you very much. It is not only Friday, it's not only the CFO has also indicated to me it's also the end of the financial year, and therefore she will have to work the whole weekend because Monday is the last day of the financial year. So thank you very much for this opportunity, and may you also have a blessed further meeting, and may God bless you for the rest of the year.
Thank you, Minister, and thank you, HOD and your team. Really, we appreciate. We were hoping that we'll be invited for a cake by the Minister. I see that invite has been really, ignored completely. But really, thank you very much. You are really excused.
It's in the post.
If you want to leave, Minister, and your team, you are really welcome. But if you want to stay and listen to the deliberation around the vote, you are also, I mean, not the deliberation, but the, the support or non-support in terms of adopting the vote, you are welcome to stay. Thank you very much.
Thank you to the committee. We will exit.
Okay, so let's give them 2 minutes to exit, and then we can really start in the next, let's say 4:02, we can start deliberating on the vote before us. Please take a small body break, and then we'll come after the commercial break. We have now exhausted the deliberation on the vote. Now is consideration and adoption of the draft report on vote 11. So as I was stopped on my request to have the committee to express its view on the report, I just wanted to know if there are support for the votes by raise of hands. By raise of hands, support for the vote.
No support.
Okay. So I see Member Vessel, support. Member Constable, support. Member Brinkhay, support. Member Mbombo, support. Member Bryant, support. So those are the majority. In terms of Rule 90, are there any members of this committee that are not in support and wants to record their minority views? Members who support, you can lower your hands. Honorable Bryant, are you supporting and non-support? Honorable Bryant? Okay.
Sorry, Chair, it wasn't letting me lower, but it's lowered now.
Okay. The Honorable Nomin Gondlo, he is not in support of this vote. You will, in terms of Rule 90, your minority report shall be noted in the report. Shireen, I am in your hands now going forward in terms of the next step with regards to this report, the draft report.
All right, Chairperson, I will now flight the report. You then read the report into record and the committee then adopts it as correct.
Thank you. Honourable members, report of the Standing Committee on Agriculture, Economic Development and Tourism on Vote 11, Agriculture in the Schedule to the Western Cape Appropriation Bill, B2 2025, dated 28 March 2025, as follows. The Standing Committee on Agriculture, Economic Development and Tourism, having deliberated on the subject of Vote 11, Agriculture in the Schedule to the Western Cape Appropriation Bill B2 2025, referred to in accordance with Standing Rule 188, reports that it supports the vote. In accordance with Standing Rule 90, the African National Congress expressed its minority view to not support the vote. Honourable members, the report is therefore adopted. Shireen, we're done with this part. Are we moving now to resolutions?
We can now move to resolutions, Chief. Certainly. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I know that there are questions that the department indicated that they will provide answers in writing. Have you noted them in the resolution?
I have, Chairperson.
You want to read them out, maybe?
Here, just to get clarity from members and just to make sure that I'm on the right track. In terms of the employment in the agricultural sector regarding the permanent and seasonal workers, Bongiswa did say that the department would send through a detailed report. Is that correct, Chairperson? Just want to make sure before I move to the next one. Okay.
Yeah, that's what I got.
And then in terms of the grants received, the beneficiaries, the HOD did say that he will check in terms of the POPI Act, if it's allowed, if they could share with us a list of those beneficiaries, specific reference to the names and the amount that each beneficiary receives, and also which region those beneficiaries reside in.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, you can proceed.
And I think maybe Member Nkondlo just has to help me with the one regarding the rezoning of agricultural land. And I know she asked specifically what has been the department's response to the applications received. I'm just not quite sure how to structure that. If I could just get some assistance there, please.
Honourable Nkondlo.
Thank you, Chair. My question is, of the 555 zoning applications, I was interested to know how many of those applications were application to rezone or subdivide or rezone in particular from agricultural activity to any other thing. It could be a mall or something, as the minister was referring. And then where were those, and what was the response of the department? As I think it was indicated that in most they would have opposed, which is what they have an obligation to do. I just want to understand that, if they could give me that breakdown. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Gondlo. Are there any other resolutions that maybe are not recorded, honorable members? A show of hands, going once, going twice. Thank you, honorable members. Therefore, the meeting is adjourned. Maybe just as a last note is that we are going ahead in full steam with regards to the 22nd of April. Responses in that regard from the industry?
You broke up there for a second, but I think were you asking if there's been any responses?
Yes.
From the invitation letters that have gone out?
Yeah.
Only one response from Hortgrow, Chair, to date.
Okay. No,
The
thanks very
stakeholders
much.
have until the 2nd of April to respond.
Okay.
Yes.
No, thank you very much. Yeah. Honorable members, really it's Friday. I don't want to hold you any longer. Thank you very much for your participation and your robustness. And, it has been quite engaged debate. And to Honorable Stoffel, if I will check the Hansard and we'll make a ruling at the next meeting. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. You are free to enjoy your Friday.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, and thank